Okay, if we just move on a little bit more advanced now, there's a whole lot of, I guess I can throw in, there's another cool chord progression you could learn. The minor keys tend to have them, I reckon. So another one is just your classic 4, 5, 6 over and over again. So that 4, 5, 6 is great. F, G, A. Depending on the battery on the phone goes, see if I can squeeze a bit more in. Okay, this gets a bit more complex. Inside every scale, there's a thing called a mode. In fact, there's several modes. This is a bit more from a jazz perspective, and also from the medieval Gregorian chant perspective. If you're studying Gregorian chant, and the modes the monks used. Basically, say C major scale. You can start a note on any of those degrees, and make a new keynote or a home note based off that new scale. For example, if we start on D and keep it with the C major scale, you get or D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Just using the notes for C major, but making D the home note. That's called Dorian, D Dorian. It's built on the second degree of the scale. If we do the same on the third, get a little bit more angsty. Again, Dorian was kind of minor-esque. I like to think of Dorian as minor with a kind of a warm edge when you go from that D minor to the G chord. Phrygian, however, built on the third degree, has that sort of angsty minor second E to the F in this case, because it's an E Phrygian. It has that certain edge. The next one up on the fourth note is C major's F Lydian. So Lydian is any mode built on the fourth degree of a major scale. See, Lydian, kind of majorish. It has that kind of raised, that sharpened fourth that you wouldn't get in a normal major scale. Sort of feel-good Hollywood family movies, I noticed, use a lot of that Lydian. Of course, the Simpsons. What is it? That's a famous one built on the Lydian. Maria from West Side Story. Once met a girl called Maria. That's got a sort of a Lydian feel. And I guess as I'm going through this, we'll get to the stage where you can use these modes to improvise. The classic major scale, harmonic minor scale that you get taught traditional piano and classical harmony will take you so far, but these are even more options that are great to play with. And a lot of pop songs and jazz music are built on this that you wouldn't necessarily hear or come across in the classical period. Classical, I'm meaning sort of romantic down to your Baroque. I know that, I realise there's exceptions there too. So we're up to Lydian. So Mixolydian is the next one. It's the fifth note. Mixolydian is the fifth mode, and this one's G Mixolydian, still in C major. That sort of flattened seventh that you wouldn't really get in a normal major scale. A lot of rock music. Rock out to the Mixolydian. It's also got that kind of Latin tequilas and Madonna's Ray of Light. Built on that Mixolydian scale. Next up we have Aeolian. That's common. That was what I was using before on the 6, 4, 1, 5 suggestion. It's a fairly common natural minor scale, Aeolian. If you study classical scales as well, at your exam scales, what we call a melodic minor. It's the one going down that has that natural seventh that it's the same scale you get in a minor key signature also. So A natural minor is also the same as A Aeolian. Classic in a lot of pop music. That's a great one to work with. The not so used one is the Locrian, is the seventh. It's built on the Locrian scale. It centers around kind of a diminished chord, which sounds unsettled. It's built on 2 minor thirds. It's very different from a major or minor chord. If you try to build a mode on that, it just never really settles. So it's good for your angry, your angsty, your tense sort of music. Challenge for composers to work with that more. But anyway, so each of these modes, you can start applying them to chords you're doing if you want to go in a little bit more further. So although even on that first one with your C major, you apply a mode to each of the chords. So C major chord, you would apply the first one. Actually, we didn't talk about that because it's just such a common your C major scale. Its modal name is the Ionian mode. Now, for purposes for improvisation, I recommend omitting the fourth, taking the fourth away, in this case the F, so you avoid it. It's like treating it a bit like a hole, or treating it like a handle with care note as been described in jazz and stuff. So you might, if you do hit it, you want to get off it fairly quickly, or you're using it for some sort of tension purposes. So avoiding at the start is good practice, and you can use what I call this is something I use with students called I call it, I guess, an arc improvisation. So what you could do is to learn to improvise on this mode, omitting the fourth, and maybe just using, I'd still go for rather than a C major triad, I'd probably use an open C chord, that CGC that we used before. I've done it on other videos too, but on the socials here. but I start with a, say, left hand chord, and I gradually work my way up the top of the piano and all the way back down again. Trying to use every note at some point, a general going up and a general going down, but taking care to omit that fourth note out. Using some pedal. And playing around that kind of hole of the F there. So in this case it's G, E. Getting comfortable with what's at the edge there. Taking care to do one thing at a time, so either the left or either the right. Left first. The reason I say that is because it helps kind of create a feeling of space. A feeling of the idea taking a breath on the melody of the right hand. You keep going until you get all the way back down and your right hand sort of bumps against the left hand there, and ending it with a left hand one. And it might take you 30 seconds to do that, more likely like a minute to 3 minutes, and you kind of get a shape of of going up, going down, and you get this kind of climax somewhere towards the middle when you reach the top and the pitch there. And get used to exploring the whole range of the right hand. Often when you're improvising, you spend a lot of time getting stuck in one area. So it's good to think of the scale in all the areas of the piano. And that left hand creates a kind of what we call a drone. You could do it with a C chord, get the same effect. And again, you go through these modes. So that was the C Ionian. You could practice again with the F mode. Well, the F doesn't really need the Lydian. Everything kind of just works. You don't really need to avoid notes. For the G though, again, it's the mixed Lydian, and again, it has that avoid note of the fourth, which is, in this case, it's the C. So you can practice going up, avoiding that C where you're going to play around if you like. Play around the gap of that C. I really should be taking turns there. Maybe even down an octave. Yeah, highly recommend that. The C, the G, or practicing the Ionian mode on the C chord and the mixed Lydian mode on the G chord, both avoiding that fourth. So in that case, when you go to then improvise on the 1, 4 and the 5, you become a bit more adept at thinking the right mode or the right scale for the chord you're using, because it's kind of like a switch you flick. In the beginning, you can just use C major, it keeps it simple, but this is more of a complex level where you'll find that certain notes, it's the clash, the F with the C there, like the F and the C major and the C and the G major, as said before. So this can just take it to another level, and then you can do the same things on the 6 and the 4, going through all the avoid notes, other areas you might want to avoid. So if you're using the 6, you might avoid the 6th note, the F in AARLM. For more sort of harmonious notes against that. The F and the 1 we don't yet, so the 6 chord. The only one we haven't talked about too is, well, Dorian. I find Dorian Lydian very, very free, and Dorian, it's like Dorian. A lot of freedom. I find anything goes on that. Anything goes on Lydian. The other one to watch maybe is the Phrygian. The 3 chord is not as a common. I find you have to avoid that second degree of the mode. But a part of the charm of that 3 chord is that clash, the 6th note may need avoiding as well. But yeah, we could look at more complex ways of dealing with that 3 chord. And the other thing too is, as far as improvising, black keys is always a good go-to and a good starting point for any age, for that matter. As long as you've got enough pressure. I've used this with 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds, improvising in a black key. A good point to start is like if you're using that 5-1-5, 5-2-1 sort of hand shape, you could use it on E flat, B flat, and E flat, and then just use any black notes you want, using that as a sort of a bottom drone, like we did before on the C and the G. Just using black notes in the right hand. Natural sort of 3 chord, if you hit the F sharp, and a natural 4 chord on the A flat. Let's get quite a nice flat 7th chord on the C sharp. And again, if you're starting off with this, even just single notes, you get quite a nice effect on that E flat. Bring it home to the key you started with. So if you start on E flat, you want to come back down to E flat again to finish it off. Kind of gives it a resolution. Black key improvising is great. Later on, if you get into your blues stuff, you can keep that. See, one thing I didn't explain is that these black keys is the ultimate shape of what's called the pentatonic scale, which is, again, in a key, you've got, for an F sharp major here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6 of any scale is what's called the pentatonic scale. That's a great starting improvisation tool as well. That'll tend to work really well on any chord. So again, if you're in C major, you can use C, D, E, G, and A. Flying through this, you really need to spend time immersing yourself. Things like that arc improvisation, go up, you go down, or spending time using these particular keys